Aloha, and welcome to Voices of Truth One-on-One with Hawaii's Future, brought to you by the Kiwani Foundation. I'm Mahuke Kahu Cardwell, and I'll tell you this, we have a very special guest on the show, so let's go on over here and meet him. Kaleikoa.
Aloha, aloha.
Tell us where we are today, Kaleikoa.
So right now we're at actually what we call Waihe'e Park, but Waihe'e Park is part of Kou District, and we sit as part of Nawai'eha, the four waters of Maui. And it's bordered by Waihe'e, which is on the north side. And if you look down the coastline, you can see some of the famous sand dunes.
Oh, yes.
Of Waihe'e.
Yeah,
and towards my left, that's Waihehu. And this make up two of the four valleys of Waihe'e, Waihehu, Wailuku, and Waikapu, or Nawai'eha, Maui. Yeah.
Wow.
Four waters of Maui.
Kaleikoa, we wanted to have you on the show because, first of all, we want to explain to our viewers, you were on Voices of Truth One-on-One with Hawaii's Future.
Yeah, quite a while back.
Years ago.
Yeah.
And so a lot has happened in those years in the, you know, what used to be called the sovereignty movement.
Right,
what do we call it today?
That's a real good question. You know, I think that's part of the discussion. I think because we understand, not, I wouldn't say academically so much more, but I think the fact that the community, I mean, it's probably tripled or quadrupled the amount of people in Hawaii and also outside of Hawaii who really understand the political history of Hawaii, and I think understand the kind of struggles that are occurring within Hawaii. And so, therefore, you know, the language that we use have moved from where we're talking about sovereignty as a movement, which many times usually kind of pertain to the kind of history of whether federal recognition or more state recognition, to one today where people use language, of course, like deoccupation or, you know, the return of our independent and sovereign nation state. And so the language has shifted mainly because, not just because I think of a few personalities or teachers or scholars, but because the everyday Kanaka and everyday person of Aloha Aina out there are also well aware now of the history, and therefore when we use words, for example, like occupation, you know, it's not something just empty rhetoric, but you can point to a legal analysis, understanding of what actually that word means. And so we're definitely a lot more articulate about what we mean. I think that was probably most greatly demonstrated during the Department of Interior hearings that came, was it back in 2014, which really showed and showcased, I believe, the willingness really of our people, educated, to come out physically and speak for themselves, not looking back at some government official or some attorney or some professor perhaps from the university to describe our situation. But now that knowledge is at home with the common maka'ainana, the people of the land, the Ho'aina.
The commoners.
The common people who can speak and will tell the true history and will tell really what our people desire. And that's really, like all peoples, as I would say, you know, the struggle of our people is really, it's a human struggle. It's really a human rights struggle where we have a right as a people to exist upon this world, in this place, Hawaii, to be who we determine ourselves to be. And that's really, for me, the core issue, is that our people are beginning to articulate this message, and it's spread all over. You know, from a farmer to an attorney, to an educator, to a stay-at-home mom, all of these components of our lahui, to people even in the States, back in the continent, are all now aware and are participating in this discussion to say to the world that we demand a right and space and place in this world to be who we are, and to be and claim ourselves as Hawaii nationals in Hawaii.
What you just hit upon was something I think is really key, because first of all, you're a professor at UH Maui campus, but the knowledge that you just talked about and the awareness of that knowledge didn't just stay amongst, you know, the academians. It didn't stay in book learning. What has happened in the ensuing years since you've been on Voices of Truth is everyday people not only know it, but they know it well, and they know it well in a way that they can tell and explain to others, and it impacts their lives on a very direct day, every day.
Evidence is beyond, it's not even a debate anymore. That even, as you said, the word maka'aina, the common person, even Kanaka or non-Kanaka, can look at the evidence and clearly can see that we are an occupied people. And when I look at this, what I'm so hopeful about is that it's not that just people are saying the historical fact we're occupied, but people are saying we want and we deserve and we demand to be deoccupied. And therefore we will participate in whatever manner it might be, whether it's local, state politics at the legislature, which is going on today, or it's at some federal hearing like the Department of Interior, or even on the international level. Our people are uniting really in the language of saying what we determine what we want to happen here. See, to me, I think that is why, and I'm going to quote somebody like Kwame Ture, who said, you know you're doing something when your enemies are doing something. Right? So in other words, the reactionaries, that consciousness raising of the people, really, for me, is really what's exciting.
Yeah.
It's really what's exciting, is that the wave, in a sense, is beginning to crest.
Yeah.
You know, that's why I feel the wave is beginning to crest through this consciousness, and consciousness leads to people saying, I demand to be treated as a human being. And that, of course, bleeds itself to all those various issues that we have going on in Hawaii. Whether it's talking about protection of water, whether it's about returning water life to the stream, whether it's fighting for the protection of our lands and resources, fighting against these huge industrial food corporations like Monsanto and the GMO air, whether it's about, you know, new kind of developments that are being planned for on North Shore Maui and so forth. So our people are using this kind of energy and getting involved in local politics. Not because we're limited to local politics, that's the point to understand, but we're telling local politics that they must address this question, that they can no longer ignore this question. And we will, if we have to, we will make it a point to address that even in their own hearings. They understand that is the language of resistance. And not just resistance in saying we don't want this, but I'm talking about resistance in the sense of people using that language and ideas to promote in a progressive way where we want to head, which is counter. You see, it's a counter narrative, it's counter hegemonic to what the state's plans, which is to keep things as has been, force Hawaiians into kind of assimilative political process like Na'ia Puni, take away any kind of supposed claims we may have to federal lands, any kind of lands that the state has determined or U.S. military is using, and, you know, give Hawaiians perhaps kaho'olawe, some money. Maybe you get a right to develop some land in Kaka'ako, and you all should be happy. But the truth is, our people aren't happy because of their oppressive nature. Our people, in a natural sense, cannot help but resist that oppression. And it's by resisting is really where we get stronger. And we get stronger, we start, and in a struggle, this is where we organize better. And the more we organize, the stronger we get. And so, like I said, to me, this is all opportunity for our people. The Office of Hawaiian Affairs themselves, as a supposed Hawaiian agency, should have themselves, they should actually do testimonies gathering events around the islands to put on forever onto paper what the people at this time are saying. And the only reason, in fact I challenge, or the only reason they don't do that is that they know the truth. To me, what makes OHA really unjustified in having any kind of claim of authority or any kind of claim of representation of our people, because they know in their heart that if they truly represented the people, they would not be afraid of the people. But the Office of Hawaiian Affairs are afraid of the people. Therefore, that's why they do these kinds of sneaky behind-the-scenes deals, or that's why they create these kinds of avenues for self-determination or self-governance in a way that's really coded for how does the state maintain control over our lands and the federal government and the military control. That's what it's about. That's what they're hoping for. And so the role of OHA has nothing really to do with betterment of Native Hawaiians. The role of OHA is really about creating some kind of representative body to allow the erasure and assimilation to occur.
Well, it's about the betterment of the state of Hawaii.
Correct. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And for them to somehow believe that keeping things at status quo is good for Hawaiians, you see.
Yeah.
We understand. No, status quo means the death of our people. Status quo means Mauna Kea goes on. Status quo means Haleakala goes on. Status quo means the water, which is 29 out of the 31 streams of West Maui, continue to be diverted. Status quo means on East Maui, where the lands in which those waters are taken from every day, East Maui, equals all the domestic water that's used on Oahu every day. That's how much water is taken of East Maui every day. Lands that belong to who? The Hawaiian Kingdom. See, and the point I'm trying to say is that these are issues that have garnered this kind of flavor, in a sense, not flavor but really I would say something from the core. So many of those young people who are involved with these struggles at the very beginning will say, the state of Hawaii, they're not trapped within the process that the state created. From the very beginning, they're challenging the state, saying, hey, you don't even have jurisdiction from the very beginning. Now, obviously the state chooses and elects its mentality to not address that issue, to pretend those issues don't exist. But we know, that's where we're going back, we all know that the facts and the evidence are all there.
Yeah.
They can choose to ignore the facts. And that's one of the things I always say. They may have the guns, but we got the truth. They may claim to have power over us, but they don't have the authority over us. You know, they may have the right to abuse our lands and our people for some private land speculators or for some bankers to, you know, get wealthy off of this place. And they may empower that. But yet, our people continue to resist this. And for me, that's why I'm a big believer in saying the key really to this whole struggle is the resistance. And resistance starts here. That's why the raising of the consciousness, language, understanding of political history is the key. Once you understand the political history, once you understand the economics and politics, you cannot help but to activate yourself in a way, to organize yourself in a way, to listen, to learn, to participate in a way that demands change for the better of this place and our people. And so, you know, we're really, like I said, I think we're really in an exciting time. We're really in a time when you see there's an uprising. And I don't think it's just Kanaka or the Lahui Kanaka or Aloha Aina in Hawaii, but you can look around what's going on in the rest of the world.
Yeah, Standing Rock.
Standing Rock. And you know, there's this interesting kind of debate. I saw some of the state representatives, like in Ige's office, kind of talking about that. Oh, Standing Rock really has nothing to do, of course, with Mauna Kea. You know, and of course, the giggly for us is that, no, we were at the very beginning with the Mauna Kea struggle. American Indians, who later ended up in Standing Rock, were part of the struggle. Hawaiians, in fact, were some of the first people, like Malia Halamin and others, some of the first guys who got arrested at places like Standing Rock. Yeah. And so, they can choose to ignore this kind of relationship that we have, fighting the common. We may have different histories. We may have a little different situation, but we're still fighting the same oppressors with the same oil men, the same bankers, the same Wall Street people, the same military people. Those are the same foes that we struggle against. So, therefore, our stories are very, very similar. And in fact, I think the language that was then eventually used in North Dakota, with, you know, the idea shift, of course, from protesters to protectors. Of course, that came from, you know, the struggle in Mauna Kea itself. And so that's why, to me, I say it's a very interesting time. And it's not for just Hawaiians, but I think for many non-Hawaiians, even in the States. You know, they're looking at this history, realizing, how can we treat and continue to mistreat Native peoples in this way? You know, how can we maintain, we can talk about democracy, but you know, if you don't live democracy, you see the contradictions, just like in Hawaii. You can talk about Hawaii, this place, you know, and the Hawaiian, and this Hawaiian cultural values, but at the core, if it's just superficial, the people see that and witness that and feel that, and I think they cannot help but to resist and demand that Hawaiian cultural values are not something that's just painted as some pamphlet in some governing booklet, but in fact becomes the core of how we look at this place and we choose to live in this place. Because we know as a people, and I think anybody who lives in Hawaii, we know we're in trouble in regards to what's going on here. You know, it's getting further militarized, it's getting further commercialized, commodified, and we cannot help but to resist it. So we're in a cultural war, cultural battle that's going on right now. You know, besides the political, but there's actually a cultural war going on. Whether or not we will remain, you know, Keepoi Aloha Aina, people lovers of land. I think Mauna Kea and Haleakala are the greatest examples, really, of that. Who has the right to determine what is sacred space? Is it Washington, D.C.? Is it Jajamano? Is it the governor's office? Is it proponents and astronomers from outside of Hawaii? Are they the ones who determine for us what is sacred and what should be done on the mountain? So again, you can see the silliness, the foolishness in that mentality. Yeah. And the contradiction only reveals itself. Our people, our supporters, not just around the world, are saying no more. That we demand to stand for ourselves and determine for ourselves our future. And that's really what, to me, at the end, that's what sovereignty is about. You can define it any other way. But for me, it's for you to determine for yourselves what is best for yourselves and to determine for your future, at that simple level. The first time I attended a Sovereign Sunday, and this is back in 1988, I believe, with Kauai Puna Pre-Jean at the Iolani Palace, and there maybe were a couple of dozen of us there.
Yeah.
To see where it has grown to this day, it's amazing. You can go to any public hearing today, you can go to any educational showing at the university, any kind of talks you see in a community, and many times those places will be filled with people, hunger and eager. And then you bring in social media into the mix, and our people are getting more and more educated about everything. As Lili'u Okalani told us, the voice of the people is the voice of God. And for me, that's such a powerful voice. That's true democracy. The true goal for me at this point, not just an educator, but is finding ways to find those opportunities for our people to speak. Because I'm at the point, I don't have to speak for the next Hawaiian anymore, you see.
Yeah, yeah.
That's the point. I don't need to speak for the Hawaiian, because that Hawaiian can speak for himself now.
That cat is out of the bag.
They can talk.
Yeah.
She can talk.
Yeah.
My goal today is finding those political ways so I can find a pathway so they can speak for themselves. Today, when I look at really what's the job of many of us who have been involved with these kinds of issues are not so much to speak on behalf of, but I think I can say, to find ways in which they can speak for themselves. Because we're at this time now where many of our people can. And to me, that is so-called democracy. That is nation building. Nation building doesn't come from any kind of signing a list, any kind of, checking off some card. Yep. Nation building is standing on your own 2 feet with your own voice and speaking for yourself exactly forever what you really feel from now. So, and I think that's what you're going to see more and more of into the future. And that's what you see actually going on today. So it's a very looking back, even in the last 10 years, you can see the growth just in the last 10 years.
Huge changes.
The amount of people that I know, I have friends and family who did not really pay attention to those kinds of issues. Whereby today, many of them are at the forefront of these kinds of issues. So, and even the young, the young today, you can see the growth. So whereas I had to go to the University of Hawaii through the academic process to understand and learn many of these things, many of the same knowledge today can be found not just in the community, but even within the high schools. High school students understand this political history and able to clearly articulate exactly what went on and really what's going on today.
Well, Kaleikoa, it's also, you can find it on Facebook, you can find it on YouTube.
Everywhere.
You can find it on t-shirts that people wear, on their clothing, on the songs that we sing, everywhere. Wow. One question I hear a lot today is this: what's going to happen to us? What should we do now that the occupier, the U.S. government, has President Donald Trump in office?
Trump. Well, I think if you remember, I was talking about this earlier, and I say, I always see those kinds of things in a kind of dialectical kind of sense, where it's because of the Trumps, you have the rise of the Moses. Yeah? So, the sense of Trump, historically, people like Trump historically have been very important, because by their nature as a supremacist mentality and their nature to dominate and oppress, it only helps the oppressed to understand their conditions. And once the oppressed really understand their conditions, they cannot help but to resist that oppression. And so when you see what's going on, I think, with people like Donald Trump, as they say, make America great again. Donald Trump really represents that kind of American, which is that we dominate, we control, we determine everything, our way or no way at all. And I think what you see going on is not just for Hawaiians, but I think many people see that ugliness, see that I want to use the word sickness in that mentality.
Yeah.
And by nature, I think, as human beings, the oppressed cannot help but resist oppression. And so people like Donald Trump, I guess when I know people are afraid, and I'm afraid. He can do this guy is crazy. He can do some crazy things. That's true. But it's almost understanding, it's because he can do those crazy, it's like you see the extremes of really what could occur. And so by virtue of that, people are afraid of that reality. And so it's like we have no choice but to organize, not just Hawaiians, but organize Hawaiians with environmentalists, and all those different kind of social movements out there that are going on. We cannot help but to mobilize and organize ourselves together, because that's the only way we're going to change for better tomorrow. But it's also a way where Hawaiians, environmentalists, feminists, and other kinds of social groups, by the nature of us organizing together, we learn from one another. And in learning from one another, we learn to support one another. And as we start to support, you see my point, you see this, we're looking for a better world. And that's why I say for myself, I'm not limited to being a so-called Hawaiian sovereignty activist, the kind of labels they put on me. Because I refuse to be that small. We all, as human beings, have a right to determine for ourselves what is best for ourselves. And that's really, and I'm not speaking from a nationalist kind of mentality. I'm speaking from a sense of fluidity, in a sense of the ability for all peoples to determine for ourselves, again, what is national character? What is nationality? What would our national lands be? What kind of laws should we have to protect our resources? For example, when you look at things like federal recognition, and the thing I would say, with federal recognition, as it has been used against American Indians, and I use the word against American Indians because that's really what it has been used for. It justifies and legitimizes the great rip-offs, the kind of violence that have been perpetrated against American Indians. When you look at the Hawaiian situation, what would federal recognition do for Mauna Kea? Nothing.
Yeah.
What would it do in regards to returning the water to our streams?
Nothing.
Nothing. What would it do to protecting our barriers from these kind of aggressive developers and desecration?
Nothing.
Nothing. They might give us kaho'olawe. They might give us some money. You might get some grants. But in regards to the lives of the everyday maka'ainana who live on this land, those who every day struggle to survive in Hawaii, it does nothing. You see, now people understand that. What is our salvation is truth. Our salvation is really to understand our political history truthfully and to analyze for ourselves truthfully where we want to go, and for us to be willing and to be, what's the word I'm saying, brave enough, courageous enough to say, this is who we are. And not just that we demand to be who we are, but we were going to take those steps to be who we are. And I think that's why, again, going back to the question of Trump, Trump is that mirror we can see. You see, in other words, we can look as a Hawaiian and say, what would it be like to really be a Hawaiian American? You see, that American part scares us now because who's your daddy there?
Yeah.
Trump's your daddy. And if you really if you want Trump as your daddy, as I say as a Hawaiian, go ahead. Go ahead and follow Trump. That's your daddy. But I, as a human being, refuse to have somebody like Trump to be ahead of my people.
Are you hopeful for the future?
Oh, I'm very, very hopeful, not just for the future. I guess I see, hope is something I see happening today.
Okay.
I hope this 20 years ago, 25 years ago, that we'll come to the day, like I said, where I can turn to a high school kid, and the high school kid can tell me what I knew 25 years ago as this kind of small academic Hawaiians who were running around trying to express really at that time what we felt was most important to understand in regards to political history and our activism. But today, like I said, I see the hope blossoming. And so I can only be excited and be positive about what's happening. Again, going to the thing about Trump. See, that's why for me, Trump reveals our strength. Trump will showcase that the fact that we will stand, not just as Hawaiians, but I think you're going to see we will stand as people who believe in humanity for all. We'll stand, we'll unify, we'll activate ourselves to do what is necessary. And hopefully, in this working together, we'll be able to wash away that kind of supremacist, sick mentality of people like Trump and who he represents. And that's why, for me, when I hear those proponents for federal recognition, even at the Office of Foreign Affairs, who talk about America as if America is this great grand father that we should look to and be thankful for the work that they have done for Native peoples. It really showcases that they have no clue about what the United States have done to Native peoples. And we can look at the Pacific, we can talk about Inuatak, Rongelap, Bikini Atoll, our Micronesian brothers and sisters, the rest of the Pacific. We can look at American foreign policy, which supports regimes that murder and produce genocide in places like Papua, in places like Indonesia and Malaysia. We can look at the problems that even exist in places like Africa, where American foreign policy really are at the threshold of finding ways for American imperialism now to take over what used to be European colonial empires and not support the native peoples of Africa to rule themselves. So what you see going on, I think this is a worldwide movement of resistance and awakening, I think, that you see going on. And so I'm very, very hopeful. And I think You know, and I believe the Hawaiians actually have an important role in all of this. And I
Yes.
think the great George Helm said, you know, we believe aloha is really what's going to help to save the world.
Hawaiians can lead the
And,
way.
and I believe that. That's why I said I refuse to accept that somehow this Hawaiian question is something just deals with Hawaii. And I believe this is something that's worldwide. And I believe that we have a role in the world, like our kupuna did, who secured our nation state status in 1843. You know, the roles of people like Ha'aliliu and others, I think, see, their stories now are commonplace. Where it used to be just a few people could tell the story. These are stories that are spread out through a community today. So that's why for me, that education has always been the key, not to our survival, but I look to our flourishment into the future. And with that, you know, I know that that's the cornerstone we must take care of, is the education of our people.
Wow. And that's where we got to leave it. What a wonderful message. Kaleikoa, mahalo to you for
Thank
being
you,
on
brother.
Voices of Truth. Remember, you can watch us on the web 24/7 on voicesoftruth.tv.com, and you can visit Voices of Truth One-on-One with Hawaii's Future on Facebook. I'm Ehuke Kahu Cardwell for the Kiwani Foundation, along with Kaleikoa. And until next time, ahui ho!
Mahalo for watching Voices of Truth One-on-One with Hawaii's Future. Watch us on the web 24/7 at voicesoftruth.tv.com. You'll find all our shows, including this one, in case you want to see it again or share it with family and friends. Also view our weekly video commentaries at freehawaiitv.com. And check out our blog, published daily, at freehawaii.info. It's all part of the Free Hawaii Broadcasting Network.